Hey, what's going on, guys? It's been a while since my last real video on anything that I've done. This is something that I've never really done before, which is make a Diablo 3 video. I've streamed this game tons of times, but I don't think that I've ever really made a video on it. Today what I'm going to be showing you guys is the patch 2.5 or Season 10 Impale build for the Demon Hunter. With this new patch, oh, by the way, yeah, that right there is the dog, so I apologize for any background music or background noise such as the dogs or my phone ringing, anything like that. I apologize in advance. So now, with this new patch 2.5, it reworked the Holy Point Shot Quiver to now throw 2 additional knives, so that's pretty awesome. I'm by no means a professional Demon Hunter player. I am just your everyday average gamer who loves to have fun gaming. Please keep in mind that this character is only 2 to 3 days old and the playtime is probably about 25 to 30 hours. However, those are not grinding hours for my gear. Most of my gear I used Kadala and upgrade yellows to get. I haven't grinded for gear on this character except for anything that dropped on Greater Rift 75 runs, which I believe was a few ancients. Also, please keep in mind that some of my gear is augmented, but that was only needed to help me push to my Greater Rift 80. This build is a great starter build for anyone new to Demon Hunters and is a very fun and easy build to learn. Now that out of the way, let's jump into the armor. So right now I'm going to show you guys the armor, and I do apologize if I am stuttering or saying a lot. I haven't really done a video for YouTube in a very long time, so I apologize for that. And this is my first time doing it for Diablo as well. So let's go ahead and get into the armor. For the headpiece, what you're going to want to try and get on it is Dex, critical hit chance, and Impale damage. Now I have Dex, armor, and crit chance. That's the best that I can do because it rolled with armor on it, and I rolled whatever I had before. It's a crit chance. But what you want to try and get is what I said before. Dex, critical hit chance, and Impale damage for maximum damage. Obviously you'd be losing some vitality, but that'll be in place elsewhere. Now to the chest piece. You're going to want to try and get Dex, Vitality, and Life. That's pretty much all that you need on the chest. You can swap the Life for the new. Well, maybe it's not new, maybe it's old, but I don't ever remember seeing it. But you can swap the Life for resist elite damage if you want, but that's really a personal preference. For your pants, you're going to want to try and get Dex, Vitality, resist all. That's pretty much what I have here. Boots, you want to try and get Dex, Vitality, Impale damage, and armor. I don't have armor because mine rolled with regen life per second. Anything that I can do about that, but that's pretty much what you're going to want to try and get. Moving on to the shoulders, you're going to want to try and have dexterity, vitality, resist all, and cooldown reduction. Just cooldown of all skills. So pretty much what I have there. Moving on to the gloves, you're going to want to try and get dexterity, attack speed, critical hit damage, and critical hit chance. That's pretty much exactly what I have right there. However, they're not ancient. I'm working on getting some more ancient pieces. But again, keep in mind, all this gear was mainly got between Kadala and upgrading yellows, except for the ancient gear. Most of the ancient gear wasn't from Kadala, it was probably from the 75 Greater Rift runs. But now that the set piece armor is done, what we are going to do is move on to the belt. Belt is called the Chain of Shadows, and the Chain of Shadows is needed so that way after you use Impale, vault costs no resource. So you can pretty much vault around freely after using Impale. Which is going to be needed for the bracers right here. So moving on to the bracers, you can see enemies hit by knockback suffer 24% increased damage for 6 seconds. So with the rune that we have on Vault, which we'll get into after the armor, it stuns them, and then that will proc our strong arm bracers for the 24% increased damage. What you want to try and get on the strong arm bracers are going to be lightning or elemental damage, which is going to be lightning since this is a lightning build. You can also do a cold build, but I prefer the lightning build. So you're going to want to try and get lightning, dexterity, vitality, and critical hit chance. And again, keep in mind the augments were only there to help me push past my 80, This build is a great starter build, and it does a lot of damage without augments. Moving on to the quiver. This build would not be the new Impale build without the Holy Point Shot. Reason being is that the new Holy Point Shot, Impale throws 2 additional knives. Sorry guys, I'm recording with OBS, and I just got a follower, so I apologize for that noise there. That's actually my streaming follower sound, and since I'm streaming or recording with OBS, it also has my streaming stuff implemented, so I do apologize about that. But moving on, this build will not be the new Impale build without the Holy Point Shot. Reason being is because the Impale now throws 2 additional knives, so now you throw a total of 3 Impale, or 3 knives while using Impale, which is insane damage. So what you want to try and get on this is lightning, attack speed, crit hit chance, and cooldown reduction. Whatever else comes is bonus. I don't have cooldown reduction, but I also didn't have crit hit chance, so I needed to get that on there. Moving on to the weapon, you're going to want to use Carlia's Point. Reason being is because the Impale returns either 10 to 15 damage, or it returns 10 to 15 hatred if an enemy hit is already impaled. So once you hit an enemy and you hit him again, it's going to return 10 to 15 hatred. Mine rolled a 13, which is pretty much in the middle of 10 to 15, which is pretty good. For the stats on here, you're going to want to get the, you're going to want to have damage, dexterity, vitality, and attack speed. You don't need vitality. Vitality is actually kind of like a personal preference thing. If you're low on vitality, then you can have vitality, but you want to try and get attack speed on here. Since mine did not roll with any damage whatsoever, I rolled off whatever I rolled off to get 10% damage. The top one, which is cold damage, can roll with whatever. That doesn't really matter. You can just leave it there. If it rolls with lightning, then that's better for you. Moving on to the jewelry. This set, or this build, is going to be using the Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose, so that way while you're moving around, you get more survivability, up to 50%, damage taken reduced, and then while you stand still, it goes from 50 all the way up to 100% increased damage. So while you're standing still, throw in your Impale, which won't be for very long, so I highly doubt you'll make it to 100 unless you're fighting the Rift Guardian. It'll go up to 100% or whatever it is that, you get it at while you're standing still, that much more increased damage. So that's what those are for. On your jewelry, you're going to want to try and have crit hit damage, crit chance, and a socket. Dexterity is another thing that you're going to want on there. Roll off vitality if you have to. However, my Compass Rose is completely horrible because this was a Witch Doctor drop, so I rolled off the intelligence to crit hit chance because I needed crit hit chance. Traveler's Pledge, you're going to want to try and have elemental damage, crit chance, crit damage, and a socket. I already had my crit chance at where I needed it, which is 50 or better. I try not to go over 55 because I don't think you really have to, but that's just my personal preference. So I rolled off the crit chance or lightning. Moving on to the other ring, which is the conventional elements, so that way when your lightning procs down here with the convention, once it switches to lightning, that is 200%, I believe. Well, actually, it's 169 because I'm wearing it. It's not in a cube. So it's 169% more increased damage for lightning, since your Impale is going to be doing lightning damage. And again, you want to have crit hit damage, dexterity, crit hit chance, and a socket. Crit hit chance is only needed again if you are below 50, or if you want to get it a little bit over 50. My crit hit chance is sitting at 53, and my damage is at 453. Your damage can be however high you make it, so it's pretty much whatever however good your rolls are, pretty much. You want 3 maxed out tier diamonds, emeralds in the chest and the pants, and you want 1 diamond in the helm for cooldown reduction, 12.5%. That way, once your vengeance runs out, you can get back into vengeance and pop your companion as fast as possible. Now that the armor is done, we're going to go ahead and move on to the skills. First one that we're using is called Impale, and we're going to have the rune Ricochet on it, which is lightning. And what it does is ricochets from once you hit one person, to 2 additional enemies who are within 20 yards of each other. The next rune that we're going to be using is the Shadow Power rune, which is needed because the set gives every rune of Shadow Power, so why not use it? Doesn't really matter what rune you pick because you get every single rune, so you can pick whatever one. Next ability that we're using is going to be Companion with the Wolf Companion, so that way when you use it, like that, you can see your wolf howls, and what that does is it grants you 15% increased damage. Moving on to Vengeance. Once we cast Vengeance, you can see that we turn red, and with every shot we fire off a few homing rockets, and with every vault we fire off a few shots. And what this does is, I have the rune on it called Seethe, which increases my hatred regeneration by default. So as you can see, we're still using Vengeance right now, and the hatred regen is just filling back up. Most people don't use Seethe with this build, but I choose to use Seethe just in case, because sometimes when I'm vaulting around and I'm just kind of throwing knives beforehand, I might not hit anyone, so I might not get the hatred impale returned from hitting an enemy that's already been impaled. And if I do that too much, and I get down to the point where I don't have enough hatred, then I have to kind of just sit there until my hatred manually fills back up to be able to rethrow it. But if you don't want to do that and you feel comfortable not using Seethe, then you can go ahead and throw in Darkheart. Darkheart reduces all of your damage taken by 50% while you are using, or while you're inside of Vengeance, while you have Vengeance activated. Since we're on Vengeance right now, I have the Visage of Goons, which is in the cube, which gives me the Vengeance, or the Darkheart rune for Vengeance. So that is why I'm running Seethe. People usually run Darkheart, and then in the cube, instead of using Visage of Goons, because you already have it from picking that rune, people tend to run this. So while you're above 90% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by another 50%. So that's a total of 100% reduced damage with both Darkheart and the other item called the Aquila Cuirass, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce that. So that's a total of 100% damage reduction right there. I prefer not to use that. Like I said, I explained myself why, just in case if I run out of hatred. I might change that in the future. I'm not too sure yet. I haven't played this build for super long to really mess around with it fully. The next ability that we're going to be using is called Fan of Knives, and the rune is going to be Bladed Armor. So that way when we cast Fan of Knives, we get 40% additional armor for 6 seconds. So that gives us more defense. As you can see, you don't have to hit an enemy with this. But once we cast it, you can see that little green bar, and it says Fan of Knives increased armor, 3 seconds left. So you don't have to hit any enemy with this. You can just cast it, and boom, you got your additional armor for 6 seconds. And last but not least, the one that's going to proc our bracers, we need vaults, and we need rattling roll. So every time you vault through an enemy, it'll stun them and knock them up in the air for 1.5 seconds, which will proc our strong arm bracers, giving us 24% increased damage to whoever you stun for 6 seconds. So that's where some of your other damage comes from as well. And guys, make sure that you have Shadow Power up at all times as well. You only have to cast it one time until you die. Once you die, you do have to recast it. And that's it for the abilities, I believe. Let's go on to the passives. I am currently using Call the Weak, Ambush, Steady Aim, and Leech. Call the Weak, what it does is increase your damage by 20% against slowed or chilled enemies. But pretty much anything that's impaired, that has their movement impaired. And we are running, I forgot to go with this before actually, but we are running Bane of the Trapped. And I have mine over rank 25, which means once you're at rank 25, you gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of the enemies within 15 yards by 30%. So once you get within 15 yards of an enemy, which is probably about from me to my companion right now, that's probably about 15 yards in game. That will reduce his movement speed, and then that will proc our Bane of the Trapped. So once we hit them with Impale, then it will deal 36% more damage for people who are slowed or under controlled impairing effects. Next gem that we're going to want is the Go-Go of Swiftness. What it does is it increases your attack speed and dodge chance, and once you get this to rank 25 or higher, gain 1% cooldown reduction per stack of Swiftness. Very good, because that helps out with the cooldown on Companion and Vengeance. Fan of Knives is pretty fast. Once your armor runs out, it's just about off cooldown. Maybe for a second, then we can pop it. Just like that. The last gem that we're going to use is the Bane of the Powerful. So once you kill an elite pack, you're going to gain 20% increased damage for however long you guys have, depending on what rank your gem is. It doesn't increase the damage at all, it just increases the seconds. So it's always going to be 20 seconds, or 20% increased damage for however long. Since my gem is rank 62, it is currently 92 seconds. And once you hit rank 25, you also gain 15% increased damage versus elites and take 15% reduced damage from elites. So after you kill an elite pack, and then you're going to hunt down another elite pack, or while you're killing trash, if you run into another elite pack and you still have the Bane of the Powerful procced, you have that 20% damage increase still from the previous pack, as well as 15% increased damage versus the elites. And you also take 15% reduced damage, which I already said. So, there's those gems. So our Bane of the Trapped will proc the Call of the Week, which is why I'm using it. I'm using Ambush due to the fact that Impale is mainly damage dealer. Well, it's a heavy single target damage dealer. So you deal 40% additional damage to enemies above 75% health. Now, yes, I usually don't like to use Ambush because once they drop below that 75% health, you lose that 40% damage buff. So what's really the point in using it? But since Impale is such a high damage build, once you throw that first Impale, it's just going to chuck their health really low. And this is actually really good for the Rift Guardian. From there on out, you can just pretty much vault back and forth and tumble between them to stun the Rift Guardian, then let your Bane of the Trapped and your Strong Arm Bracers do the rest of the work for the 24% increased damage. Actually, I believe it goes from 20 to 30, so it does depend on what kind of roll you get on your Strong Arm Bracers, but mine happens to be 24. Moving on to the next passive, we have Steady Aim. As long as there are no enemies within 10 yards, all damage is increased by 20%. 10 yards in the game is really, really close. It's a little too close. Probably about that. From me to the blacksmith, that's probably about 10 yards in game. But that is why I'm using Steady Aim, so I get another 20% damage on top of that. So this mixed with Call of the Week is 40% total damage. And then when you're doing the Rift Guardian, as soon as he first spawns in, you're going to get that 40% damage buff, plus Steady Aim, plus Call of the Week for when you trap him, or stun him, or roll through him, whatever it is that you decide to do. That's 80% damage increase right there against the Rift Guardian, right in the beginning. Once he drops below 75, you only have 40% with these two. But in the very beginning, that's 80%, so that's really, really good. And last but not least, I am using Leech. Some of you guys may or may not like to use Leech. I used Leech when I pushed my higher Greater Rift. It was needed for that because the Templar wasn't able to heal me fast enough, and obviously the cooldown on the potions is only so long. And I kept taking hits a lot, so I wanted to have Leech just to feel on the safe side. The reason I'm not using Awareness is because I'd rather have Leech over Awareness, because if I get down low again, Awareness won't really save me until a minute it's up. With Leech, at least I can leech health back, you know, every time I hit an enemy. You can swap Leech out for pretty much whatever you guys feel that you need. Leech is kind of a personal preference for me. So the fourth one can really be anything. It can be single out for the Guardian, but you don't really need that because you're using Impale build and it already does massive single target damage. You could use Awareness. It's completely up to you guys. But I used Leech because I pushed an 80 GR and I needed the Leech for that so that way I would not die as often. I think that's just about everything. So now I'm going to show you guys a quick speed run on a GR70. Again, this character, we can actually find out right now how many hours is on it. We have 31 hours, okay. But that's 31 hours. That's about 2 to 3 days in real life time of me playing. Obviously, I didn't stay up straight and play for 31 hours. I really didn't play on it too much, and I used blood shards to gear most of my gear from Kadala. Any gear that you see is ancient is probably not from Kadala. It's probably a drop from the Rift. Actually, no, that's not true. I think the boots and the pants are from Kadala, but either way, this build is very good for starter people, and it's very easy to learn. I will explain it to you guys as we're going through the Rift. And what I like to do is, as well, I use the numlock trick for autocast, so I don't have to keep recasting Companion, Vengeance, or Phantom Knives. So the game automatically casts it for me with the numlock trick. If you guys don't know the numlock trick, you can just look it up on YouTube or on Google, and it's very easy to do, and you can find it out. It doesn't get you banned or anything. I've been using it for a few years now, and all it does is autocast, so that way you don't have to forget to cast something or anything like that. It just casts it right for you. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a GR70. Again, my gear is augmented, but don't worry guys, if you guys don't have any ancients or any augments, anything like that, as long as you have the decent stats, you'll be able to do fine with this build, no problem. I'm just going to pretty much show you how good this build is. So I'm going to go ahead and activate my autocast right now, so that way the autocast casts for me once we get in here. It's off the timer. We're going to right click to activate shadow power, and we're just going to start tumbling through them and just start throwing Impale at them. And like I said, I might die a few times. I'm not a professional Impale. I'm not a professional Demon Hunter player. This is a build that's pretty much brand new to me. I played Impale one other time, but it wasn't before. It was before it's patch 2.5, so it wasn't the best. That was before they had the Holy Point Shot Quiver reworked. And I'm also running my companion with the Oculus Ring, I believe it's called. That way he places down the a little circle right here that you guys see that gives me a lot more damage. Just make sure that you guys are rolling through these guys to proc your damage for your strong arm bracers. That way you guys get the max damage that you can. And oh, you know what I forgot to show you guys? I'm a bad video recorder. I forgot to show you guys what else I had in the cube. Apart from using the Visage of Goons, I also have the Dawn in the cube. Now what the Dawn does is it reduces the cooldown of your Vengeance by 65%, so that way your Vengeance comes off cooldown as fast as possible, and you can get that reactivated as fast as possible for more damage and more survivability with using the Darkheart rune or the Visage of Goons. The other item that I have in the jewelry slot is called the Elusive Ring. What the Elusive Ring does is it reduces your damage by 60% every time you cast Vault for 8 seconds. Or the damage reduction lasts for 8 seconds, I'm sorry. So every time you cast Vault, you get damage reduction by 60% for 8 seconds. I don't know why I forgot to go over that. I think it's because I ran over to the cube beforehand. I wouldn't confuse you guys when I was showing you guys why I was using the Seeth rune instead of the Darkheart rune. As you guys can see, we're doing pretty good so far. It's a pretty easy build to get the hang of. And all of your damage dealing is coming from, like I said, rolling through the enemies here. Vaulting through the enemies, rather. And Impale. You guys don't vault through the enemies. You're going to be missing out on those strong arm bracers. Damage increase. You guys can also swap out the strong arm bracers for nemesis bracers, so that way you guys can do speedruns if you have enough damage without using the strong arm bracers. And rolling through them will also proc your Bane of the Trap, so that way you don't have to be within 15 yards, really. As long as you roll through them, your Bane of the Trap will get procced from being close to them as you roll through them, and when you knock them up in the air, to stun them from the Vault rune, it will also proc your Bane of the Traps. And what I'm pretty much doing here is a speed run. If you guys don't have, the same gear that I have, and you don't have, if you don't get any ancients like as fast as I did, and you don't have any augments, you guys aren't really going to want to skip as much trash as I'm skipping. But this is pretty much just to show you what the build is like and how good it is. Survivability is decent. You have 2 things that give you survivability, or 3 things, I'm sorry. And you could have 4 as well if you choose not to use Seed, like I explained earlier. If you choose not to use Seed, then you can run the Aquilus in the cube for that other 50% damage reduction. And that will get you a bunch more survivability if you're having issues. Make sure you guys vault through the Rift Guardian as well. You vault through the Rift Guardian, it also stuns the Rift Guardian, and that will proc your strong arm bracers as well. I believe that some Rift Guardians cannot be stunned. Only certain ones can, but I could be wrong on that. And there you have it, guys. That was a 70 run, done within... We had 9 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. And since my autocast is gonna screw up my teleport, can't get out of here. There we go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I am super sorry and I deeply apologize for saying or stuttering or anything like that a lot. I haven't made a Diablo 3 video ever for YouTube. And I haven't done a YouTube video in a very long time either. So I am deeply sorry for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will try and bring more videos to you guys in the future. If you guys like seeing the Diablo 3 build guides, if you like me posting them, please let me know down in the comments below, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Hopefully this video helps you guys, and I will catch you guys the next time I make a video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed.